What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today it is patch 12.20 and we are only a month away from the end of the season. So if you're trying to reach your end of season goals, the next few weeks of solo queue are going to be really important. We'll be going through some of the biggest changes on this patch and the things that you most need to know about patch 12.20 in under 5 minutes so you can get that sweet Victoria Sejuani skin. The biggest change in the patch by far has to be the changes to Summoner's Rift. Riot decided the map was too small and they added a completely new layer to the whole thing. That's right, in patch 12.20, Riot has added a new space layer, exclusively available to people getting knocked up by Blitzcrank. Alright, jokes aside, we are going to be talking about the biggest winners of the patch, then the biggest nerfs, and finally any small or placebo changes that you shouldn't get baited by. So out of this patch, I think there are 3 big winners. That's the champs that really benefit from the changes and are seeing almost direct power increases. In that category, we got Wukong, Jayce, and Rammus. So starting with Wukong, he's getting a straight 50% buff on his ultimate AD scaling. This is huge for a champion that's basically a big ball of stats. And remember, Wukong gets the ulti twice, so what he's actually getting is an extra 110% AD scaling on his ulti. That's a lot of damage. I'm expecting this to be a buff to both Wukong top and jungle, and even with more damage on his R now, he's becoming a very ultimate reliant monkey. So next up is Jayce, and boy, do I think he's getting some buffs. I have mixed feelings about Jayce. On one hand, he's an incredibly cool champ with a super high skill cap that, when played well, makes every other champion look like Fudge's Fiora. On the other hand, there are like 3 people in the world who can actually play Jayce well, and the chances are you're not one of them. Unless you're watching Duguri, then I take that back. So initially, you might think that Jayce's buff is that he's now getting scaling armor and MR on his passive melee form. Oh, he's gonna get so tanky. But in reality, 7.5% armor MR with around 150 AD, which is basically Jayce at 3 items, is only really 11 armor MR or so. It's really not that insane. But Jayce is also getting a huge buff to his mana restore when he's hitting things in hammer form. So at level 1 on your W, the mana you're getting from each melee auto attack is going from 6 to 10 mana, which is insane because Jayce's mana costs are fixed. His Q costs 40 mana. So every single time you melee auto attack, you're getting 10 mana back. Basically, if you can attack something in hammer form, you've just removed mana costs from Jayce. It's kind of insane. This is going to be really noticeable in winning matchups where Jayce can freely switch to melee form in between Qs and poke and keep pressuring. I really like this change. It rewards the Jayce players who weave between ranged and melee. So ever since I was terrorized by this one high elo Rammus player, I've been convinced that this champion is disgustingly OP in solo queue. But alas, nobody believes me and they call me crazy. Well, jungle Rammus may be sleeper OP in my mind, but there are big downsides to this champion. Namely, after his first few clears, he farms very slowly, and there is an undocumented nerf to his W, which doesn't allow you to scale your W's damage with the resistances you get by pressing W. Very clear, thank you Riot. But in patch 12.20, Riot are removing the slow on W altogether, which in my opinion is a very big change. Maybe it's possible to actually trade with enemy laners and also chase people when ganking without pressing your W, and then realizing you move slower than G2's macro at Worlds. And for context, removing a 30% self slow is like adding more move speed than boots. We'll see if this pushes more people to play Rammus in the top lane. On to the losers. Who got nerfed this patch? Well, AD carries once again have something to cry about. Lethal tempo is getting nerfed. The extra range you get at maximum lethal tempo stacks is being reduced by 25 for range champs, so it is now equal to melee users. Lethal tempo is the default rune for a lot of AD carries, and I'm sure people will perceive the change to be bigger than it is and probably switch off of it just based on perception. But you have to keep in mind, you will only feel this nerf once you're at 6 auto attacks, and even then it's a 25 range nerf. So early game, I'm expecting this to matter very little if at all, unless you are letting the enemy AD carry hit you 6 times in a row and stack lethal tempo before you put your hands back on the keyboard. Can't deny it is a nerf though, and changing ranges usually leads to kind of feel bad moments because people get muscle memory for their auto attack ranges. Oh, and for your information, this change to Aatrox is not gonna do it, chief. Somebody at Riot offices does not want to upset all the Aatrox OTPs. So what's What's left are the placebo changes like the Aatrox change I just mentioned. Stuff that you should not get baited by. What do we got? So Maokai, it looks like a big nerf, but in my opinion, these aren't very impactful. Small changes to his passive and his ultimate cooldown are not what will push Maokai out of top lane. And even then, it is mainly for very late game when he starts to fall off anyway. I think they are mainly aiming at nerfing Odoamne, but it'll take more than that to take out EU's last hope. As of recording, Odoamne is Europe's last hope, and if he doesn't manage to make it, then no Maokai on this green earth can carry EU out of groups. So yeah, praising for EU's Maokai, God bless. The Frozen Heart change at a glance looks bad, but what Riot's doing is simply moving the item up a tier in terms of cost and giving it the gold value back in terms of its armor. So no more dirt cheap purchase against full AD teams, but you'll now get a whopping 90 armor for your money. Ziggs is a lane nullifier, so he outranges and outwave clears people, and he survives long enough to farm. But after the durability patch, he has been struggling to blow people up, so buffing his wave clear might help him, but it's a tiny buff to a champ that needs a lot more damage to reach the power levels he used to be at. But he is still the king of stalling. And finally, we got Demonic Embrace. So they're hitting the burn on Demonic, and they are nerfing the HP, but giving it more ability power. So some people see this as a nerf, but we all know you should not trust strangers to give you patch advice. In reality, it is a situational buff for some champions and a nerf for tank users. Take a mid-game Lilia. Against a level 13 Maokai, she is losing 0.3 damage per Q dot. Yeah, not much, right? That's a ridiculous 0.05% change in total Q damage. Well, pack it up, boys. This item is dead. But remember, they are also buffing the AP on it, so all her other abilities now deal more damage. And on top of that, most demonic users also build Liandry's, and Liandry's has its own ability power scaling, which means you're getting more damage, which is very cool. However, it is a nerf to tanks like Zac and Amumu and others that build tanky, as losing 100 HP is a big deal. So the moral of the story is don't trust the numbers, and it's not always what it seems. Anyway, folks, I am gonna leave you with that. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more patch previews like this, then hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you catch these reviews as the patch drops. And aside from that, good luck in solo queue, and remember to buy pink wards, you greedy intern.